Well, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes, and I am here on UFO Classified for the last time. And I made the announcement this week that I was going to be putting UFO Classified to bed, which I know I've had a lot of messages from all of my wonderful friends all over the world that listen to the show, and we've created quite a community here over the years. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud that all of you are so dedicated to not only finding the truth, but you get in here. And thank you, Collie, for your super sticker, and Simon, and all of you from Germany, from Scotland, all over the world. This really makes me and Matt Wright, all of you guys. It's so great. Ken, Rodan, to see all of you in here this evening. Scott, I've just got to go down. Peter, of course. You guys have meant the world to me. You mean the world to me. And as you know, and you've watched me progress over this has almost been 10 years now that I've had some form of a show every Friday night. And I've been very blessed to interview some incredible people. And I'm also very fortunate that I got some people on record, because now as I look back at some of the things that they've said, well, it might not work out for them in the long run. History is a beautiful thing when you look back on specific things. But I have done my very best each week to try to research the people that I'm bringing on, and to make them feel like they're the most important thing on the planet. I have done my due diligence to make sure over the years that I've supported specific people that I felt had noble intentions. And interestingly enough, as you've watched this show progress, I have learned more and more about these people and perhaps their intentions. And some of them, well, their intentions weren't as noble as I had anticipated. And so again, people fall far from the tree in my personal circle, but that's okay. And thank you for the super sticker, Matthew and Collie. Thank you. Drink for the road. This is awesome, you guys. I love you guys. And Steve, thanks for being here. I want to just thank all of my Patreons who have been helping me cover the costs for the show, just barely. And I want you to know that as much as I am done with UFO Classified for multiple reasons, that there are bright things on the horizon that will allow me to do much more and have a much bigger footing into the world, and to interview potentially people that will really be game changers, not in the UFO community, but above and beyond. And so I am really looking forward to the new direction that I'm headed. It's going to be very positive. I will still be doing a lot of research, really digging deep behind the scenes to expose things that are not factual information, things that could potentially hurt other individuals. And I want to just kind of give you some of my thoughts about everything, so you know where I come from. So when I joined publicly, when I got involved with MUFON, I had the thought that we were all doing this together, that we all had this knowingness that there was potentially something more out there in the universe, and that as like-minded individuals, that we would come together and support other people in the field, that we would dedicate our own time, money, resources, potentially sacrifice personal relationships and business relationships to try to strive for the truth. And instead, what I have found is a community, and I'm not talking about the people listening to my show, because you guys are right on the money. We've got a good group of people here. But the UFO community is full of people who claim to be full of love and light, and they're full of crap. They claim to be full of wanting to push forward and connect with benevolent space beings. But let's not talk about the fact that racism has been embedded into this topic since its inception, and nobody, including the old guard, has actually ever done their due diligence to call this out. And so I'm saying shame on all of you. That's what I'm saying. I'm in a mood tonight. You guys are gonna freaking love this one. And I also want to just say that it has been really shocking and saddening to me that as a woman, I can come into this subject and surround myself with other women. And yet, when I see sexual harassment or I'm the target of sexual harassment, bullying, and abuse, these women don't step up and do the right thing. And I'll never forget a moment when I got onto a Woman in Ufology Facebook page. And I had posted something along the lines of that I had been publicly sexually harassed and defamed. And the person, a woman who had that chat room, actually said to me, they said, well, you know what? We don't want to have this kind of negativity on our Facebook post page. So we're taking you off. I also did a show with Kathleen Marden and Chase Kletzky. You can find that on Gene Steinberg's Paracast. This was a roundtable about women in ufology. And I was bringing up some of these things that had happened to me during my time at MUFON. And neither one of those women really actually had the wherewithal to stand up and address issues that are taking place to other women that could potentially affect other women, new women coming into the field. And that right there is out there for everyone to listen to. And I encourage you to listen to that. I also, over the years, have been the victim of stalking. And there was one such person, I've got to tell you this because there's so many things that have happened, and I know they've happened to other people too, and so I want to shine a light on this. But I was introduced to a man because I was state director for MUFON, and another person that I really care for, who was another state director of MUFON, introduced me to this man, and we appeared on his show on behalf of MUFON many, many times to support our research in the organization. And this man, unbeknownst to me, had some mental issues, and he began stalking me. And when I said, no more, I'm done with you, he actually had a radio show, and he went onto that radio show and went out to everybody and said that I was named my family, doxed my family, and said that I was having all of these encounters at different conferences. And I went to MUFON and tried to get some protection. And of course, there was nothing. And it was interesting because I also sent an email out to different state directors, like people like Rich Hoffman, who was involved then, and other people. And I said, hey, this is what's happening. This fellow is going to different conferences and he's threatening to kill me. And I need some support from other MUFON leadership. And it was nothing. And so, there was that point in time. There have been other points in time in my journey throughout the subject of ufology where I've had these experiences, and it has been deafening to see the silence of other people around me, people that are promoting love and light, that are promoting moving forward, that are promoting quote unquote scientific research, that don't have the moral fortitude to stand up for other people in a subject where we deserve to be protected. And to me, that says a lot about the whole subject. And then we flash forward to, people in the current ufology who hide behind fake credentials. I'm sure we know who they are. Thank you, APA Case Files. Thank you for the super sticker. And again, thank you to all of my wonderful people, friends that I have in chat tonight. But you've got these people that, and I totally lost my train of thought because I was so excited reading chat. That's just me. At least my mic is unmuted. But anyway, so you have, this group of people that they're not standing up for what's right. And, I've mentioned this multiple times on different shows, but when I was dewy-eyed and new to this subject, and I had the ear of Richard Dolan and, some of the big boys in ufology, I would always say to them, hey, what are we going to do, you guys? Because we need to make this subject better. We need to make it safer. We need to move the needle forward instead of spinning our little rat wheel around and around. And all of them said, no, we're not doing anything. It's the way it's always been. And so we're done. Excuse me. And so to me, that just said so much, that spoke volumes about people that are just making money at this subject. They're not really doing things to advance things. They're not moving the needle forward, and they're not protecting people that deserve that. And there is a lot of need to protect the wonderful people that have had sightings or think that they've had sightings, that turn to our community, to this community, not my community that I'm looking at right here, but the UFO community, to get help for things. And they are manipulated and abused and pushed into a cult-like things that are really detrimental to their health. And so I just want to say, to everyone who has been involved in this and that doesn't have a backbone, I just say again, shame on you. Shame on you for making money. Shame on you for hiding data. And that brings me to another important point. You know that I have a love of archiving. And to me, to sit here with this, and this is a box, Skynet. I've got a ton of QFOS stuff in here. I've also got file cabinet after file cabinet of personal exchanges, correspondence with Walt Anders, with Jacques Vallée, with many people that were involved in QFOS and NICAP. Lots of different things in my holdings here that is very important. And it has come to my attention that certain people now that are archiving in the subject have no intention to make sure that we have satellite places, that we have other places, but instead we're doing the same thing we've always done. We're sweeping up data. We're sitting on top of that data and pounding our chests on our fists like, hey, you know what? I've got the biggest truck in town because I've got the most data. And, I'm going to get the props of other people, and I'm not going to share information at the end of the day, or I'm going to pretend like I'm going to, but it's going to be the same old nonsense where I'm sweeping up data. I'm going to put it where I want to, and you and me and everyone out there will never actually have that information. And that is another reason why this subject will never move forward with this kind of nonsense going on in the field. And so I just want to say, for me, and I'm continuing my new effort with Jack Brewer, Expanding Frontiers Research. I'm really proud of this. I'm excited about this. This will continue. But I want to say that by no means should UFO archives be in one location, not only because that is a safety issue, not only because there is no place on the planet, maybe AFU, that pay people to go in and archive data, but there isn't a place in the United States that I know of that has the capacity to process this type of information that is being funneled into locations. And I will also say that as a female archivist, I should get some props, and we should be supporting females in this subject that are trying to move it forward. We should also, when we're looking at archiving, we should ask very specific questions. Why are things going to one location? Does the person that has this location have an agenda? Is that agenda perhaps, does that have to do with money? Does that have to do with ego? Does that have to do with being with a group of people who have continually repressed the information for their own motivations? So let's ask a lot of questions, and then let's also say, hey, wait a minute, if we've got this in one location, then there are travel restrictions and people aren't going to be able to get to that as easily. So there are lots of things that we need to be aware of. Transparency in archiving is not taking place, and that is absolutely for sure. And I will promise you one thing, that if any of you have your precious life's work and you want to make sure it is going to a place that will not only value you and your work, then I just want to say that Expanding Frontiers Research is the place that will do that's the place that will do that. I don't feel, and neither does Jack Brewer, feel that we're not vultures that are waiting to sweep up information archives from people that are dying or dead. That isn't our goal. Our goal is to remember and honor people. Our goal is to make sure that information is shared. And thank you, UFO John Doe. That is so kind of you guys. Thank you. Wow, that's really, really, really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your kind comments. That really means a lot. You guys, I wasn't going to cry tonight, but it's very emotional for me, as you know, for many reasons. And so, anyway, thank you for your love and support, you guys. You mean the world to me. So I want to bring in my friend and colleague and person that has done some incredible research lately. If you haven't read Wayward Sons, I would definitely suggest getting that book about NICAP. And Jack Brewer, welcome to the show. And let me just say, it's an honor to have you on my last show. I know that we had planned another guest to be here this evening, but unfortunately circumstances were such that we couldn't do that. But I'm very grateful that you're here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Erica. And I really appreciate your authenticity and your sincerity with your viewers and listeners. I I certainly can relate to how folks might feel that are watching and listening. Erica first reached out to me about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, and we had kind of a distant collaboration. We'd touch base now and then on things, and it increased. And as I became more aware of Erica, I watched her show more. I followed things she was doing and identified her as someone that had a great deal of knowledge about the Utah area and about the topic in general, and began talking more with her. And in the last couple of years, came to be one of the few shows that I just knew what time it's on, and I didn't worry about who the guest was going to be. And through the pandemic was one of the shows that I came to feel like I was hanging out with, as we were all boxed in so much in our homes. And uh, I'm very proud to work with you too. And I appreciate your authenticity and your willingness to speak your mind. And I'd like folks to know that as Erica and I were in the planning stages of what became Expanding Frontiers Research, one of the things I wanted to encourage her to do was more of just what she wants to do. Like if it's podcasts or videos or what it might be, I felt like that she brings a lot to the subject and the genre, and that there's a lot more there to release and to build on. And I feel like the articles and the research that we have published this far with Expanding Frontiers is a direct result of collaborating with Erica and having her help direct agencies and topics of FOIA requests and records requests. And I see a lot more stuff coming out of it as well. And again, thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. It's been such a pleasure to look at your work over the years and to then start our collaboration, because I think you and I, well, I know you and I have a really great chemistry, and we work off each other's strengths and help where there are I mean, where I'm here, you're over there, and so we come together and bring a very complementary research team to to the front. And I think that is just, we can look at expandingfrontiers.org and some of the work that you have put out, your blogs on Skinwalker Ranch, on public accountability, and the conference that is being held up in Vernal, Utah, that is being funded by taxpayers and promoting things that aren't factual, claiming that they are. And so I think this is really powerful. This is a needed thing to do, and it is interesting because you and I have had conversations. We had a conversation the other day about this and how funny it is to see people just kind of like, oh my gosh, you're going to go there. Well, this is real world stuff, so we're going to look the other way. And I find that kind of comical, and I find it rather disturbing all at once, because here you've got people that are clearly, they're not walking the walk. They're not doing what they say. There's a motivation there. There's an agenda, and that needs to be looked at. And so again, I'm just so excited for your work, for the blogs that we have, and I'm really looking forward to a new and positive direction where we're incorporating a much broader, line of questioning, which I think will be really positive. And we will be able to, for future interviews, I'll be able to incorporate people that would have potentially shied away from UFO Classified as a name, and then want to lend their expertise to a new show title and platform. And so I think that will be very, very good.
I agree. Thank you. And yes, some of the work that we've been doing is it. I'd like to think that expanding frontiers, we even kind of um, bring a contrast that like if people look at what we're doing and then they look at traditional UFO websites or video channels and things like that. I'd like to think they're starting to see the difference between just repeated stories or human interest stories where researchers or witnesses are interviewed or highlighted, that don't really have any depth, that just kind of skim the surface, and not all of them are just clickbait, but as you say, there are real world questions, real stuff you can sink your teeth into with records requests, and the old saying of follow the money. Who's paying for these people to go do these things? Why are they paying for it? Does that add to the credibility or does it detract from it? And when they're kind of keeping it on the down low, you can bet that it's not adding to the credibility. But along those lines, would you like to tell us some about what your future ideas? I know nothing's etched in stone, but like, what are your ideas for where you might go with some things in the future, if you'd like to talk about
I think for me, I mean, first of all, there's so much to life. There's so many cool experiences that I've had as a singer, as a Pilates instructor, as a person that has been, a person who cares about environmental issues, political issues. There's so many areas and incredible people to interview. And last night I was watching a really great documentary. Of course, Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving night, and you're stuffed and you're watching things. And I watched Good Night Opie, and that was a brilliant, brilliant documentary on the Mars rovers that went up there and did just an amazing year after year. I mean, groundbreaking research on Mars. And you could look at, the people that designed the two rovers that went there, and the way that they almost viewed these rovers as children once the lights were on, once the energy was there, and how they, every morning they would wake up and they'd play a wake up song like they do with NASA, and to watch the pitfalls and the joys, the major accomplishments, I mean, groundbreaking accomplishments, to watch some of these human stories about persevering, about exploring. Those are empowering stories to me, and those are the kind of people that I want to interview, that I want to interact with. In my community, I have, a great just a whole bunch of people that I could interview about aerospace technology here. I've got a wonderful bookseller who was involved in the chameleon, the salamander letter, excuse me, that is just a really, he's a character and studies like the lost roads, mine treasures, things like that. And so there are people that have stories. I'm going to do at the beginning of the year, I'm going to be going down to the Utah Historical Preservation Society and interviewing them there to figure out how we really do and to highlight how good historical preservation is actually done and what the protocols are. I'm going up to the University of Utah Special Archives. That is actually, the place that holds Dr. Frank Salisbury's archive, and he was the person that wrote the Utah UFO display. I've spent many, many days up there going through that. They have tentatively agreed to work with me in the future, and so I'm going to really lay it out and do a video series on what it means when you're an archivist and how when you're an archivist, the goal is transparency. And again, that's my thing. I often wonder, a lot of times we've had all this information in the UFO world for so long, and yet we're not seeing it out there publicly. And so why is that? There's so many questions that I have, and I hope in my new series that I can actually explore some of those questions, get answers from people that are in that, and that's a part of their lives. So, I mean, it's like I love the human story. There's so many, you and I have talked about, because we're both musicians, we've both been in the musical world. And so how do I incorporate music, arts, humanities, all of these wonderful things, consciousness, the paranormal, all of these things to one place where we're going out there and we're on a mission to explore, to empower. And that's my new goal. It is really important. I've been through so many dark places, thanks to the UFO world, thanks to Skinwalker Ranch, and that carnival, or low quality carnival. And so now it's time to move things forward. And also, you and I are going to keep exposing things. We're going to keep doing FOIA requests, grammar requests, get public officials on the record, and we're going to keep blowing things up. Because I mean, this might be a loss for UFO Classified, but this is the beginning of something much more powerful, and I'm really looking forward to that opportunity.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm kind of smiling to myself because I'm hoping as people are watching and listening, they can empathize with, like, while I was talking with Erica in like April, May, June, how you would be like, let's just kind of break this UFO frame and go into a number of other areas that she can apply her skills and her talents to. So to be clear, you're going to want to do series of YouTube interviews, shows, any number of formats.
I am. I have, amazingly enough, you guys might get a little chuckle out of this, but I do have some production skills. And so, my plan is to continue to go out into the community and to interview people in specific places, and then to have a home, back here, maybe on the same evenings, where I'm showing some of these video interviews, and we're discussing them. It's the whole thing is, I want all of you to, grab your computer and hang out with me while I go down to Escalante National Park, and while I sit there and interview park rangers about UFOs, skinwalkers, about the geology, about preservation, and some of these things. I think it's just, there's a whole world to explore, and it's so much more positive. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. And Steve is just talking mentioning in chat that it's funny to see how many people are musicians that get involved into this, and how much fun would that be to plan an evening where we're all remotely, playing an instrument and we're jamming, and doing something that's really positive, because it's, music is so powerful. And I think that Steve is very right. We do have a lot of great musicians in this community, in the UFO Classified and community, and the wonderful community that Leah and Steve and Matthew, Benny, all of these people are.
I can't hear you. Is it me or you? Hello, hello. Can you hear me? You can hear me? I'm afraid I can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Go. There we go. Yeah, you were talking about the community of Matt and Leah and some others, Steve, and yeah, I can envision uh, getting a little more integrated and coordinated as well as things continue. Um, I feel like you and I have done work to be proud of up to this point, and I would like to mention that the work we have done, has been on our own time and unfunded. We intentionally have not even, we being Erica and I, have not even done any kind of fundraising efforts yet. Um, and we do have some loose plans of how we might try to raise funds and seek grant funds and things in the future, because it is exciting to think with what we have accomplished. If there were actual funding behind it, and we could commit even more hours to it than what we have, could be pretty amazing. And I'm confident that the quality of work that you could produce, that you have produced, and the quality that you could improve upon, would be really great to see, and informative and um, positive, valid, helpful contributions to the different genres that it applied to.
Well, and I absolutely agree. And I'm, again, you bring up a great point. I mean, we started the nonprofit. Excuse me, my allergies are having a moment today. But so we started the nonprofit, and if I run off, it's because I'm going to get my little inhaler. I'm not sure what is in the air, but we
Take your time if you
yeah,
need.
so we started the nonprofit, and we have, put up the website. We're doing a lot of things, and again, that's we are doing this on our own time, like most of you I see in chat who are doing the same types of things, and I appreciate all of that as well. But I really want to be able to incorporate some good, it would be great to have somebody that could do audio. Clearly. It would be great to have somebody that could do, editing, graphics, any of these things to help with the new show. And there's so many great places, and I feel really, really lucky because with my Pilates studio and my family's connection in Utah, I grew up with a family of community activists that have accomplished incredible things. My father was on the show with you on Halloween, and he's an accomplished artist and very interesting people. But I've met and I know so many people that could add a great deal to everything I have mentioned. And not to go off on a little tangent here, but I was very lucky to have a student at my Pilates studio for a long, long time. And her husband taught at the University of Utah in the history department. And he was one of the world's foremost Native American historians. And it was just wonderful because had the opportunity over the years to sit down with him and to talk with him and ask him questions, ask him about skinwalkers. He went through his extensive library, and he was one of the people that actually went to each tribe and took their oral traditions and wrote all of them down so they wouldn't be lost. But he was just like, this was something that wasn't even mentioned. Maybe there were one or two books where there was a brief passage about this. And so I'm looking forward to interviewing historians like that can help us put together the pieces of this puzzle and then see where an insertion to a story is, like with Skinwalker Ranch, where the starting point is, where this mythology was created, what the flaws are in that mythology, and help to expose, the truthful narrative of the property and the people that are involved in that property. So these are interviews that I'm really looking forward to doing, and they will be done. And I think next year is going to be a spectacular year for making that jump and letting go of some old baggage and making some real cool changes.
That sounds great. As a grant writer, as I would talk with Erica about these kinds of things, I could get really excited about it because I can see a number of ways the project, like you're describing there, could be of interest to a number of funding entities that about funders that want to preserve Native American history, funders that would like to clarify Native American history and separate it from uh, stories, just nonsense that gets spread about it, misinformation. There's a number of directions we could go with funders that might be interested in misinformation and how the media is used and how technology is used to deceive the public, or even if not intentionally deceive, just how is it that we get from A to B to C, and then we end up over here at G, where we have otherwise rational people walking around thinking that cows are being kidnapped by beings from systems. How is this even happening? And that we can walk through that. And those are the kinds of things that we can sink our teeth in and actually look at newspaper clippings, look at history. As James Carrion likes to describe himself as a researcher of forensic history, we can actually get stuff like that under a glass. There's nowhere to go with stories about waking up with large insects with big eyes standing over us. There's really nowhere to go with those stories. That doesn't mean that nothing happened. It doesn't mean the stories don't have some type of value and culture and archetypes and any number of things. But as a researcher, there's really nowhere to go with it, where there are things we can do with records requests and newspaper archives and find out what do academics say Native American history is? What do Native Americans say Native American history is? Not people that have financial interests in promoting nonsense, just nonsense.
Absolutely. And I want to just, there are a couple things to say, and I want to go back to the cattle mutilation thing that is again being thrown out there, which, whatever, we'll get to that. But I also want to just say, I went in and just grabbed a chunk full of files today. Not a chunk. I mean, this is like a fraction of what I have, but here I've got the John Carpenter files, the Alexander UFO Religious Crisis Survey, the impact of UFOs and their occupants on religion, by the Bigelow Foundation, written by Victoria Alexander. Here I've got the Center for UFO Studies, the Roediger Abductee Study. and questionnaire, Center for UFO Correspondence, Dr. Hynek, UFO detection, QFOS, all of these things. And so there is, a wonderful, and thank you, Kali, for again, and thank you, Leah, thank you all for UFO John Doe for your wonderful super stickers. Thank you. And lenticular clouds. You're right, Lord Ludicrous. But so I've got all of these things right here, and even though there is no tangible proof abductions have ever happened, there's certainly a group of people in different places who have done a great deal of work trying to mine information, mine data from people, and to what end? Where were any of those results? And again, some of these people are involved in potentially not being forthright with their data. So, what can we do and how can we approach people in academia who can tell us more about the way things should specifically be done in a professional realm?
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that I would like to think that at EFR, at Expanding Frontiers Research, I hope that people will see a contrast in the way we handle things, that it is so rare in any of these UFO stories to see qualified experts tapped for comment. And I'll tell you something, folks, they're out there, they're willing to comment. They're often not hit up for comment because what they have to say doesn't support a ridiculous narrative. And again, that's where it meets real life. And these are the people, if the UFO subculture actually wants to make groundbreaking progress, these are the people that we have to follow their protocols, the way the qualified experts, the academics say that research works, standards of evidence, high quality standards of evidence, research protocols. If we just want to argue religion, we can do that all day. But there are established ways that are not ambiguous to prove a fact, to establish a fact. And if those standards aren't followed, if those protocols aren't followed, then there's just no point even. And these are the people that need to be consulted and asked about how we establish facts and the research process and follow these processes and standards.
Absolutely. And that is, it's the way it should be done. And I'm amazed, that that people haven't done this. And that was my big thing when I was at MUFON. It's like, why what have we done over here? What's happened? Oh, okay, great. We've got, this, I mean, I you've got a bunch of people making money from their nonprofits. They're not even, creating a nonprofit and selling thousands of dollars worth of tickets over the years for, different things and not paying taxes on these things. Yada yada yada. Anyway, so there's so much, information is fascinating. And so I want to just like go over, and I'm not many podcasts, and thanks, Steve, for your nice comment, talking about what Jack and Erica are talking about right now, even less than there were a few months ago. And you're right, there are some people that I've really liked to associate with, and they have bowed out of the situation. And hopefully we can kind of dismantle everything and then start something new. And I know Leah Prime and Luis, I mean, they've got all of these wonderful people who are doing good things. Steve, all you guys, Matthew. And so I'm going to, Jack, really quickly, because I think, let's talk about cattle mutilations. And I want to throw this out there because we've seen, the certain people affiliated with a certain ranch, the mythical magical ranch that has nothing happening, and they've been posting photos of cattle mutilations, alleged cattle mutilations, with again no proof, no tangible evidence. It's just a story of a story that you hear. And the very interesting thing, and I don't know if most people know this, but the whole time Bigelow had the property, there were other people that had grazing rights on Skinwalker Ranch. And so they were openly, just grazing their cattle on the ranch, which is the same thing that's taking place now at the current ranch. There are other people that are bringing in their cattle to graze. And so, my question is, if this place again is truly the danger that they're alleging it is, and people are losing livestock, which is this not an inexpensive thing. It's not something people set out to do. There's a lot of money involved. Then why would they be allowing um, the people to cattle ranchers to graze on the property of the ranch?
That's a completely reasonable question. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is an insult to intelligence when the assessment is strange things are going on, a weird death, just subjective language like that is just insulting. Um, there's so many things about the cattle mutilation myth that there are researchers that have done pretty good jobs of bringing out some of that myth. There are others that just catalog story after story after story that really doesn't tell us anything other than there are stories. At least it doesn't tell us a lot that I'm aware of. I also have some awareness that in the ranching community, there have been attempts by law enforcement. I think it was in Arkansas, this happened once that I read about, that uh, a sheriff's department made an effort to observe what happens after a cow has died and how it decomposes, and set up crews and film and yada yada. And it was their opinion and of the experts they consulted with that there wasn't a lot of difference between this one, that they were aware of the cause of death and monitored the decomposing, as compared to those that are called quote unquote strange. I also have some awareness that oftentimes a rancher might prefer an ambiguous story and a mystery death than a full scale investigation by local agriculture officials, because to cut to the chase, aliens from another solar system beat the hell out of hoof and mouth disease if you, don't want your herd examined. And so there's a lot of stuff going on there that's going to escape the average casual reader of these, supposedly fantastic stories. Are some of the cattle deaths, the animal deaths, strange? I can't say they're not, but that's back to the research protocols. Prove they are. That's your burden of proof. You got a dead cow in a field. They die. Prove something strange about it.
And I think the funny thing is if you were truly, concerned about doing anything forensically, you certainly wouldn't have a bunch of people traipsing in and around a crime scene in their regular clothes, and it's just not the way a crime scene investigation is done. There's so many questions, and you don't. Oh dear, you just none of that is reality. So as much fun as that might seem, in a TV show, it's not reality. So,
Well, that's kind of what you're saying too, and we're saying is like moving a little out of the UFO box, like can we take down this wall and can we take down this wall and start looking in county records and start looking in agriculture reports instead of Linda Moulton Howe's website? Can we start asking some people that actually know what the hell they're talking about what killed this cow? Um, what that kind of leads us into is the reason for breaking down those walls is that there is a UFO stigma, and it is earned in many circumstances. A lot of it, for lack of a better phrase, is just stupid. And I mean, it just is, folks. And in order to make it reasonable for people to even care to want to read, and for funders to care to for your work to have any value other than um, just gawking at it, like a freak show, then you have to take it into something. I have to take mine. We have to take ours into areas that give it credibility and recognize that stigma is earned in many regards.
Absolutely. And it is just, it is funny to, to get feedback from people that, just normal people that watch specific shows and just say, what the, I mean, I think most normal people would say, wait a minute, there's a lack of evidence and this is just not even the way it should go. And I want to just mention, because I didn't mention this in my monologue, but, we, the UFO community is has been kind of plagued by narcissistic people. And it is really interesting to me to see some of these people that come into the community and, oh, look at me, I've got this. Look at me, I'm standing by my little, Bat Boy helicopter, or I'm over here doing this and racing down the freeway, or, I'm standing on all of this information, or, I mean, it's just like all of these different things where you've got people that are really, all of us should be questioning. It's like, what is your motivation? If you're flashing your bling, your motivation is stroking your ego. Where's the science? And I think all of us that are in chat, tonight would agree with the same thing. And Helga, it's nice to see you from Norway. And I can't wait to get back there again. I will. Yeah, and narcissists and fanaticists and all sorts of things. But so yeah, it's interesting, and I would like to just I've given the link out here on chat, and if any of you guys would like to join us, Leah, Simon, Matthew, Peter, anybody, come in here and join us, and let's talk a little bit about how we can move this subject forward. UFO John Doe, I'd love to see you in a positive direction. How we could just just do something happy. I don't know. I mean, we know.
Yes, I'd like to invite people too to reach out to us at EFR with things they might like to help with. Let us know what areas of what skills you have, what things you might would like to help with, and we can build on things like that. And as people are getting up the nerve to want to jump on and talk with you some, I'd like to ask you, do any of, or I'm sure a lot do, but is there something you might like to talk about and reminisce about, like some things that stand out about UFO Classified and things that happened over the years?
I mean, I have to think back on, and this wasn't UFO. Was this UFO classified? I've had, because I started the UFO audit, and then I had a couple different platforms that I was broadcasting on, and then went to KCOR. But I do remember, and this is one of my favorite things, and this has nothing to do with UFOs per se, but my daughter back in third grade decided that she was going to prank call the show. And so I had Rita Louise on the show, and we were talking, and then Tina Marie, who was producing the show at the time, kept saying, there's you've got this caller, and every time this person calls, the voice changes. And so I think this is a prank. I should just let it go. And I said, oh, let's just not do that so quickly. And so on comes a certain person with the most spot on British accent I have ever heard. I mean, very mature. Like, hello, I'd like to talk to you about orange orbs. I've had an orange orb sighting over the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, just like, and like knew everything, knew more about orange orbs than I did. And she's going on and just freaking winging it like the best comedic timing that I have ever heard. And spot on accent. I was just so proud of her for pranking her mother. You know, to me that was like, and I'll have to find that and play that for you guys at some point in time or put that out there because that just
That's
made me.
gutsy in a lot of ways. It
Well, you know,
is.
I know that she was like Dick Van Dyke accent. Yeah, that was kind of frightening, I know. But yeah, so it was gutsy, and I know that her and her dad were sitting around laughing hysterically, and it made me so proud and and happy. And so that was like one of those moments. But then I also, there've been so many great interviews with people. I mean, Ray Boucher, who I just think the world of. He's such a wonderful man. Oh my gosh, Gordon Lohr, interviewing, getting to know Gordon and interviewing him before he passed away was a remarkable pleasure for me. Alice Druffel, after I went down and did a show with her, after her family was so kind to donate the Ann Druffel archives archive to me, and that was such just a beautiful moment. I mean, Junior Hicks, all of these people that have had that have been affected by this subject. I mean, those interviews and those moments to me are so important, and that's why I do this. And even with all the Skinwalker nonsense, for me to be able to have that as a matter of public record and to have that progression of this person coming into my life and this interview with Eric Davis here, and then this person over here who worked for Bigelow, and another person who worked for Bigelow, and so on and so on. And to have those out there for people to see and to study themselves is just a great uh, accomplishment for me, and I think that's really it's important. It's important for the future of the subject, and maybe 100 years from now, somebody can sit back and laugh at the episode I did with Jan Aldrich and things. I mean, I love Jan. It's been so much fun to interview Jan, and I adore him over the years. And so, yeah. And so now I see Leah, who's been on the show before. Yeah, yeah. Welcome.
Hey, Erica. Hey, Jack. Super excited to
Hi.
see you here, though, of course, very sorry under these circumstances.
No, well, you know what? I think, and thank you. I appreciate that. It's bittersweet in a lot of ways. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and something happened last week that just was the nail in the coffin for me. And I said, now's the time. I'm moving forward, and now we're going to do something bigger. And I'm excited because,
Yes.
I mean, you're doing that as well. And I really admire what you're doing. And first of all, before we even talk about any of this, I want to know how much you can lift.
Oh, well, it depends on the lift. But
Okay, tell me
when I
all of
was
them.
seriously competitive, 405 deadlift, 225 bench, 375 squat. All raw, classic, unbelted. Yeah, I'm very gentle in real life. I have big Ferdinand the Bull energy. Very strong, but very gentle and peaceful. Um, but yeah,
You've
that was
inspired
pretty
me.
much what got me through grad school, was lifting heavy stuff.
Wow. You know what? And I used to love to lift, and that was one of my big things. I was so proud of I'm trying to remember what I could leg press and things, but I mean, maybe I could get my 2 pound weights out now and try to, I don't know, do something. But I feel like a little friendly competition coming on if Mama can get back, dust off her, weights.
Yeah, the last couple years have seen me turn into a Peloton acolyte and a skier. So I'm not nearly as strong as I used to be. But anytime you want to talk shop about lifting heavy stuff, I'm always open for the conversation.
I love that. Thank you. I saw your photo the other day on Twitter, and I'm just like, yes, that actually inspired me. So
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you. Of
It
Good.
is
course.
inspiring. It is.
Definitely I need that, especially after my Thanksgiving. You
Yeah,
know,
no kidding, right?
Lord, I'm telling you, Mama's the size of West Texas, and that's fine. That's okay. I'm one with that. And, water retention, it's good, but I'll start lifting tomorrow. There you go.
Right on.
There's my little
Yeah.
spiel I didn't need to even tell you guys about, but I did. So thank you. And so, Leah, so you tell us about what you are doing now and the positive things that you are accomplishing to move things forward, because you really are working hard at making change. And I appreciate that. Jack does as well, I know.
Yeah, of course, of course. And I'd be remiss to not credit both of you with being, foundational influences, both in my efforts and then with the crew on the Invisible Night School. I started the Invisible Night School over the summer, having very candidly been disappointed with the caliber of conversation I was hearing around this subject, particularly because um, if we treat this subject, ufology, extraterrestrial intelligence, consciousness, etc., with the degree of substantiveness it deserves, it may very well be one of the greatest questions to ever face humanity. It seems to also confer a degree of seriousness and integrity to any kind of conversation or research on it. And so with INS, we're hosting weekly episodes airing Wednesday evening, just switched over from Saturday, and trying to effectively just elevate the conversation in this subject matter. We are branching a little bit beyond just the scope of ufology, but trying to introduce, I would say, more critical thought and considered interdisciplinary conversation. I would unequivocally say I'm easily the most woo on the panel. Like, I'm the one whose bedroom has crystals and I go on meditation retreats and talk too much about psychedelics. But I'm still an inveterate academic. I'm a librarian by education. I'm a researcher by education and profession. And I honestly think that these initiatives really speak more broadly to the kind of epistemological crisis we're all living through, where we have this like almost post-truth society and culture. So INS, I'm working also on a further reaching and more substantive personal project called We Own the Night, The Legacy of Art Bell and Coast to Coast AM, basically studying the role that Art Bell had on basically our existing and current media landscape, particularly around this subject, trying to basically create an exhaustive research archive and repository of shows, creating metadata and tagging systems, transcriptions. And then, I'd love to connect with you too about the work you're doing with Jack. I know I mentioned in the chat about pushing your shows through Whisper AI, which is like a pretty powerful natural language processing AI to extract text and sentiment. And that way you could take your archive of shows and have a searchable repository of them.
I think that would be wonderful. That's a great
Yeah.
idea. And I appreciate you, asking. I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I'll be in touch about it probably this coming week. I'll give you some time to settle. I actually just queued up one of your old shows while you were talking just to get a sense of how strong the transcription algorithm is and see if we could do these shows at scale to get something searchable and organized for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. That's really, really cool. And I want to ask you too, and I know that we talked a little bit about this on the show that you and I did a while back, but I want to ask about data, because to me, it's really, really interesting. You've got all of these UFO archives that, again, are kind of getting siphoned into one location. And you've got, obviously people have spent many, many years scanning and preserving these archives. I mean, what would the goal be for people to mine that kind of data?
Yeah, so the ideal goal is it's not terribly unusual for physical artifacts to be housed typically in a distributed fashion, even if it's through one institution, just because that way if something befalls a particular location, you don't lose all of your collection. I would love to see an introduction of some kind of collaborative distributed research consortium that could basically cross-support efforts, whether all part of one institution or just like a cooperative relationship between multiple institutions. But ideally, the archivist and librarian's goal is to make information presented without an agenda, transparent, organized in an intuitive and systemic fashion, and to make it openly available to any researcher who may be interested in it. I mean, I got my education at the Lilly Library of Rare Books and regularly handled Gutenberg Bibles and Shakespeare folios. But the beauty of a rare book library is that any person off the street can come in and use it. The point is that these are cultural artifacts that are highly democratic. Like, they are accessible to everyone. They should not by their very nature, be held behind a walled garden for only one particular purpose or individual or ideology to use and leverage.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that too. A few moments ago, Leah, you mentioned that at INS, you're trying to raise the quality of conversation and the critical skills and the quality of research. And I think that's a good way to put it, how you put it, that I'm paraphrasing, in that really it's not the topic, any topic, a flying saucer, a story of meeting a Bigfoot in the middle of the night, whatever. It's not the topic that makes the research of quality or not. It's the standards that the researcher follows, and then how it's presented. Is it presented credibly or in a sensational manner? And I think I would love collaborating about things like that. I would just enjoy it immensely.
Yeah. And I would love to. But I think, Jack, you touched on something else that's important, and I think worth noting, particularly in areas that are considered either paranormal or supernatural or pseudoscientific, is that the other, well, we'll carry the show while Erica steps away, which
Absolutely.
is that there is a responsibility incumbent on an archivist or librarian or institution to also provide appropriate social and cultural and historical context, particularly for resources that may be what we would call like unsavory. Like I've worked with plenty of materials from, say, World War II and the Nazi Party. And when you present these things, you want to always contextualize them against the historical and political landscape in which they were created, so that people who are accessing and utilizing these resources are also having some ancillary context to help understand why they're relevant, and also understand that in the broader scope of veracity and information literacy, why these are not reliable sources or why they should be called into question. And this is, of course, this is always a problem, or not a problem, but it's always a consideration around ufology. You want to provide unfettered, transparent access to research information and resources, but you also, I think, have the responsibility to speak to um, the provenance of these resources, what particular agenda or ideology they may speak to. And again, going just back to contextualizing these resources in a way that allows the layperson or lay researcher to understand the full breadth and depth and scope of the material, instead of just taking it at like the superficial face value.
Yeah, that is a great point. I recall Erica and Vanessa Walilko talking some on a conversation they had about if this stuff is like based in and grew out of right wing extremism in the
Mhm.
1940s, there needs to be some footnotes there about take it with a grain of salt at a minimum.
Right.
And yeah, and you're making a great point that context is everything. I know I have observed Mark Pilkington, the author of Mirage Men. I've seen him on social media when people quote things in his book and rightly attribute it to him and tag him. And then when he looks at it, I've seen him point out, but the reason that was in the book was to point out its inaccuracy and lack of substantiation. And now you're quoting it as if
Right.
established it as fact. Yeah.
Exactly. And like part of being good stewards of this information, like in addition to providing this context, and these notations about, like you said, like maybe how it may be informed by right-wing ideology or eugenics or racism, is also providing I would say they're typically called pathfinders in library science, which are basically like a list of resources that an individual can kind of guide their way through the path of learning about a particular subject or discipline, but also finding ways to typically graphically, like through mind map style infographics, to show the interrelationship of different resources and plot lines. I think someone in the community who does a great job of this is Luis Caetano with his like flowcharts, but having something even less detailed but can speak to the intricate relationships between, say, Adamski and the Pleiadians and eugenics and white supremacy to help I would say coalesce all of these different subjects into um, a context that again is accessible to a researcher who may not have all of the exhaustive backstory associated with all of this information.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really wonderful. And so I just have to ask you, do you see, I mean, when somebody is saying that UFO information, the UFO data, all of these case reports, all of the correspondence are basically useless because it has never proved that there's a UFO. I
Yeah, it's
mean,
not useless at
does that
all.
even make
Like
sense?
it doesn't make any sense. Even if you were because even if you were not even if the heuristic wasn't whether or not this is a legitimate real material phenomena, just from a pure sociological and anthropological perspective, this is effectively modern folklore. And there are the veracity or accuracy of these materials is secondary to their value as cultural and social artifacts, particularly because they're effectively real-time myth-making from the ufology community. We're all kind of anthropologists to some extent or another watching this unfold. And I think, I mean, in any space where you're dealing with potentially sensitive information, there's usually some kind of governance or anonymization process that's undertaken, so that even if you are talking about, say, like case reports, maybe it would be like, oh, there's an embargo for 10 years after the report is made, or 10 years after the individual's death. But the point is that there are very well established institutional guidelines for dealing with these kinds of resources in ways that are extremely sensitive to individual concerns around privacy. Things like security and institutional concerns, and then also without conferring a judgment about the veracity or truth value of the contents therein.
And so what are some of the guidelines for, obviously you've got people and their names, addresses, different things like that are in these case files. In the case of MUFON, when you've got an entry that's going into the database, it specifically says there that you're giving up your rights to your information, that this can be given to a third party. We know that was Bigelow, different things. We can use that for different media outlets purposes. So what would the guide be for, like, say, a NICAP report from the 60s? How long would you wait before you could put that information out to the public?
Yeah, so my just having not reviewed the archive or anything, but like sort of my approach here would be to look at what are these standards. Like for instance, like the Kinsey report, I think would be a good equivalence because that's similarly sensitive information about people's sexual activities. There may be some kind of embargo about 5 years after the reporting individual's death, or say 10 years since the report was taken by NICOP. But the other alternative is to create basically unique identifiers. So you don't present the entire scanned document of the report, you present an OCR digitized version, and then you anonymize the reporting individual's information and assign some kind of unique identifier. And then subsequently, if you have particular researchers, typically there's some kind of review board process like an IRB, they can then subsequently petition for access to those to be able to map those unique identifiers back to the individual's information. But again, if there is this kind of catch-all release of liability with this information. I mean, legally speaking, you could just scan it and make it all available publicly in a searchable format. The question
Okay.
of whether that's ethically advisable is obviously a secondary consideration. And I think just given the stigma and kind of taboos associated with this subject, it's probably in an institution's best interest to create some sort of anonymization and unique identifier. But I mean, again, without having reviewed the liabilities here, it's perfectly reasonable to just make it a searchable resource.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we've got two people waiting in the wings to come on, and I'm actually
Sure.
excited about this. And so I'm going to add Steve to the show.
Oh, hey,
Welcome.
Steve. What's going on,
Yeah.
friend?
You know, I'm mad at you for two reasons.
Uh-oh.
First, this was supposed to be a weekend that I shut the router off and didn't care about any of this for 2 days. Two people text me, and so I turned the router back on. And then number two is you can't leave me here. There's no good people left doing the shows the right way.
What am I, chopped liver?
Well, you're new though. Wait till you've been here doing it for 8 years or 10 years.
Like war wounded. Yeah.
I'm sad that you're gonna do that. I think maybe you should say I'm taking a break for the near term, and then we'll reevaluate instead of just say you're gonna shutter the doors. And by the way, Jack Brewer, what an amazing piece you just did. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and thank you for doing that, because I love that kind of muckraking stuff, and I loved hearing them stutter. They're all scrambling now to try to explain this and justify it. Great work.
Thank you, sir. And that compliment goes to Erica as well. She is as much involved in the process. I put the keyboard to the stories, but she's definitely involved in the process. Thank
We're
you,
a
sir.
dynamic duo, that's for sure. And thanks, Steve, for noticing. It is we have a lot more to do. There's so many requests that we have out there that we are working on, and I'm sure that there will be some people who are going to be quite unpleasantly surprised when the truth of specific things sees the light of day. But that's what we have to do, and that's where we're going to go. And I think all of us here, Leah, Steve, Jack, I mean, everybody in chat, that is our main goal, the truth. Finding that, creating a cohesive community where we can understand that a lot of people have been manipulating this subject for decade after decade to make money, to steer the political narrative, to do, all of these things that are not in the best interest of the subject. And
like the dog men smoking cigarettes. Come on, man. This is great. This is great. And I love George Knapp stuck on Rogan. Rogan says, well, where's the evidence? Well, if you want, we don't really have evidence. Even though my book begins with saying this book is all based on scientific evidence, we don't have any. We got stories about dogs smoking cigarettes. That's what we got.
And I just have to say, like, just because I was, I get in these moods, and I love Halloween. And so I am in my grand, mind. I'm like, I'm going to order a dog mask. I'm going to order a werewolf mask. I'm going to order, I did like I got all this stuff. I actually did a video, a little Skinwalker video of me doing my little thing that will never be seen in public ever.
Well, you could send it to me.
Save it for the OnlyFans.
I'll use it.
But it was
None
just like so therapeutic.
Share it.
I mean, I had like my fake little, AR-15s, and I was doing my thing, and it was just so cathartic. But it's like when you step back and you look at how ridiculous all of this is, and you think, I actually gave props to a journalist, I use that term loosely, who's promoting stuff that cannot be vetted. I mean, stuff like Bob Lazar. You look at Bob Lazar, you look at all of these, Skinwalker Ranch, all of that should just be put to bed. It's just ridiculous to me, but we know that.
It's equivalent to the fairy tales that I grew up with. They're nice stories, but
it's folklore.
It's folklore, mythology, and it becomes accepted. Bob Lazar, it always drives me crazy when I see articles that people write and they say, quote, former government scientist when they begin the article. And I lose my mind because I go, there's no proof he's a
Photocopy
scientist.
contractor repair
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Copy and paste. And there's no proof he ever worked for the government. And it drives me crazy. And one of the things that really drives me crazy, I try not to let it bother me, but the fact that the truth is so boring that nobody wants it, it makes, and these people out there telling fairy tales can make 100 times what you and I can make, or all of us can make, for telling people the truth. The truth is boring, you know. It's
But
not
it
as
isn't, though. That's the
boring.
thing. Like, it depends on who is presenting the truth. If the
Right. The
truth is
truth is
presented
just as
by,
compelling as the mythology in this
I gotta
space.
tell you too, I think maybe you're right, and I sure love the gotcha moments when I peel back some of the layers of deception that some of these people use. I love it. We just did a story on Gary Nolan that I loved. It's beautiful.
oh,
He has been using Stanford University labs, personnel, students, equipment, facilities for years to make money. I'm assuming he won't answer my questions, to make money helping UFO grifters sell fake stories. And according to the Stanford Code of Ethics, he's not allowed to do any of this. He's not allowed to use university labs, equipment, personnel. So we went to him and we asked him some questions, and he basically said, I'm not going to help you foment conspiracy theories around me. I'm not answering any of these questions. So our next step is that we're going direct to Stanford University, and I have it on good authority that one of the reasons that he may have gotten away with all of this from an ethics standpoint with the university is because one of his best friends sits on the board of ethics there. So it's rules for me, but not for, rules for thee, not me. I worked at a university. I couldn't have like a few hundred megs of a server to put MP3s on. I got in trouble. But yet somehow Gary Nolan is running around using $1 million lab equipment to take, to look at metal samples of some guy's metal ball. It's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
well,
Circling back to, thank you, Erica. Circling back to Leah's point about an archive or an institution review board should have protocols and a system in place so that when someone asks to see something, the members of the board discuss it and know whether to let them or not and what the terms are. And that ties in too to the story about Uinta County and the officials that are kind of stammering. One of the problems with that is there was no system that they have been able to present for how they decided who they invited to these Phenomenon events and what they were paid. And so, Stanford should certainly have systems in place. Now, whether they're respecting them or not becomes another issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, your decision around ethics should basically be algorithmic. It's almost like a flow chart or a decision diagram. There should almost be no humans involved in this process. You answer a sequence of questions, and then you are granted access to particularly sensitive resources or information. And this is how it's done in every other university. Yeah. I'm a rare book librarian by education.
But I mean, you've been around the college and the university system a lot. Yes. The question that I asked, and I asked a few different people like you, would Stanford University want their labs, their students, their personnel, and equipment being used to help UFO grifters make money in what can only be described as UFO scams? The Atacama humanoid, hyped up for a year and a half that it was alien, not an alien. And this latest piece that Nolan helped with was Ross Coulthart promising everybody, quote, conclusive proof of alien technology, all confirmed by this man, Gary P. Nolan. That was so bad, that piece, they had to take it down and they deleted it. They tried to wipe it all from the internet because it was so bad that it was such clickbait. Would a university want their resources, their name, involved in these kind of things? I don't know.
So the answer here may be a bit complex. If Nolan is the PI of a particular lab, it may very well be that it's under his jurisdiction how and where resources are applied for like instrumentation and research.
And he is in
that
charge of a lab.
Yeah, but that said, there may be stipulations in relationship to his grants and materials access that are contingent on particularities associated with the university. So for me, there's almost two competing issues. One is are university resources being used in an inappropriate fashion? Maybe. What concerns me is that we see there's something in media studies and communication called the liar's dividend. And basically, what it means is that there is a transference of legitimacy from legitimate to illegitimate subjects based on their proximity to established information. So, what I mean by this is just by insinuating an association and affiliation with Stanford, which is very rightly recognized as a world-class research institution, just by insinuating that association confers a degree of legitimacy on this work that Gary Nolan is undertaking, that in all probability is contrary to the university's standards or to their own guidelines around what the university can or will represent through the actions of its professors. Obviously, we have plenty of examples where tenured professors keep and maintain their tenure despite espousing pretty atrocious views, Holocaust denial, for example.
Yeah, you're right.
But the concern for me is less about Dr. Nolan and more about the institutional insinuations that are made when he presents his information.
And you're exactly right, Liam. My hypothesis is that he is using the prestige and the reputation of Stanford University to help these UFO grifters sell the grift. It doesn't. Neither of those two things, the Atacama humanoid documentary that, by the way, made millions with Greer, or this Ross Coulthard piece, neither of those things would have worked without his participation in them.
Yes,
and Stanford connection. So they wouldn't have worked, and there would have been all this money made.
How's everyone doing?
I hope that was a dog and not a woman tied up in the background.
Was that your wife?
It was the wife and the dog. The dog and the wife making squeak noises. I don't know. How's everyone doing?
Good to see
Final
you.
show. Final show, huh? Oh, she's muted.
I'm going to guess that it's not her final show and that she comes back soon.
Well,
or I'm going to hope. I'm going to hope.
It is muted. You know, I mean, I will tell you, I've been through so much, as all of you know, in this subject that I'm disgusted. I'm angry. I need like something positive to happen. I am very, very grateful that, all of you, I mean, everybody here in chat, all of you on screen tonight are making a difference. And to me, that has been so uplifting because for many, many years, it has been me on my own, hanging my rear end out there and getting it handed to me time and time again. And so the one great thing is to see the support and now this widening, this broadening of the community in the sense of community looking for ethical reform, looking for truth, looking for people to behave respectfully, wanting to move things forward. This is a really positive thing. And so I might take a break for a moment, but I have grand ideas to do new things. And I'm looking forward in the interim to do other shows. I'm excited to hang out with Leah next week and do a show, and then hopefully, Steve, you and I can do some things. I mean, I think there are going to be wonderful things taking place. I know with Expanding Frontiers Research that we are also doing a lot of stuff. Like I said, a lot of this is behind the scenes right now, But again, we will have bombshell after bombshell making it out to the public that will hopefully really change the landscape. And so I'm
Well,
not
I
going
hate to be selfish, but I hope when you've got those bombshells ready, you come to my show. We just increased our distribution incredibly, and I'm working on even more stuff.
That's great.
So I'm getting myself a bigger bullhorn, and I'd be happy to
Good.
lend it to you for those
Thank you.
stories. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Both
Yeah,
of
no.
you, both of you do excellent work, and I would be happy to help.
Thank you. We
Thank you
appreciate that.
very much.
Yeah, and I
Thank
mean, it's fun. It's for me like a last show to put UFO Classified to bed, to have all of you on here is really amazing, and it means a lot to me because I know that I'm not the only person in the world that cares about doing the right thing. And that could be, I mean, that sounds, it's a little Pollyanny, but I don't, that's me. There's so many good people that get into this subject, that are interested in this subject because they've had personal experiences that maybe they can explain if they learn more about things, but that are intrigued, that want to know, push boundaries. And time again, decade after decade, the people that have been embedded in this subject and have been the top speakers time after time, or head of different organizations, have really done a disservice to the subject. And I think now for me in my last show, I'm calling all of these people out. What have you done, MUFON? Nothing. What have you done, Center for UFO Studies? Where is your information going? Is that going to be made available to the public? Or is there going to be one king sitting on top of the information? What is going to be done to the APRO files? Well, we all know that they're kind of missing in action, but I'm tired of having a handful of people involved in this subject who are, it's like the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers to what? Keeping a
It's a
myth
big.
alive?
I always say it's a big club, and I ain't in it, and you ain't in it either, Erica.
Well,
You ain't in it
clearly
either.
I'm not in it, but that's okay. Because I'll
Yeah.
just make my own club and they can.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just like you, at some point you decided, and so did I. If these people are not going to give me a place at the table, I'm going to sit down and take it anyway. And there's nothing they can do to stop me. And now, to be very honest, I'm some of these people's worst nightmare. I hear some stories. It's great. They should have some more accountability. If you're running around scamming people constantly for money, people should know that, and they should know what sources of information are credible, like the people here, or some of these grifters at all the conferences that are making all this money. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it is ridiculous. And I think each of us has our own unique perspective and strength. And Leah, I love what you can bring to all of this, what you are bringing to all of this. I mean, there's that knowledge base. I mean, you're showing us what it really means to be an archivist, what it really means to look at data, and how important this topic is, not only because, I mean, we're never going to find a smoking gun UFO case, but what you're going to look at is the way our society works, the way interactions work. I mean, you bring all of these things so brilliantly together, and I think that is really critical. And there, as many people can say, oh, the data is useless. It isn't. This is important data, and there's a reason that people want this information. And so thank you for driving that home. I think that's really, really important. And Steve, you're just a troublemaker. We know that. But,
I'm a terrible. I'm learning though. I've been slowly learning to be a little more professional. I wish I had it to show you. I'm working on a double murder cold case I'm investigating right now, and it's so funny because the media relations person at the district attorney's office is scheduling interviews, and he said, make sure when you come to our building, you bring your press pass and your business cards. And I just went,
boy.
okay. And then I didn't know what to do. So I called a few people, and you just order a press pass online and business, so I have business cards and press passes now. And that's a whole other story. Then they denied all the interviews after I got all those things. But I'm slowly learning, and I've learned from people like you and others, and to be a little more, I'm trying to be more diplomatic and not so angry and aggressive.
Well, I mean, I think you and I could both go to a group therapy session on that one. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. And so Matthew, thanks for being here. And you've been on the show before, and I loved what you had to say. The show that you and I did together was really, really cool. And
Yeah, that
tell
was
us,
fun.
yeah, and so tell us like what, I mean, just a little brief rundown about you and then what you are doing to make, to move the
I'm
subject forward.
I'm a weed dude, so like I don't have a lot to do with UFOs. Like I'm not. I wouldn't even consider myself a ufologist. I like to read a lot of books. I have collected a lot of books over the years, and I've read a lot of them and read a lot of UFO archives newsletters and just different stuff. I collect a lot of stuff, and it's always been fascinating to me. And over the past, I'd say, I don't know, 10 years or so, it's just been more and more disillusioning. And even the past maybe 2-3 months, I found myself being very disconnected from all of it. Just kind of like, I've realized that ufology, to me, at least in from my perspective, is about people as opposed to the things in the sky that we can't identify. And I'm more interested in what we can't identify in the sky than I am the people out on Fox News or wherever, beating the drum for disclosure. But yeah.
Well, I think that's, I mean, that's definitely important. And I wish that I was like that because like right now I mean, and I'm getting back to that, but I mean, right now I'm just, it's interesting to look at the people in the
I
subject because there's
I
so many people doing a disservice to the topic.
I miss
And
the passion. I do. I miss having a passion. Like I've been asking people, like, give me a case. Just give me something, a case that blows your mind, because I don't have any more of those. I'm done with finding cases that really blow my mind. And yeah, it's discouraging, but at the same time, like I do love the quirkiness, even of the 50s Space Brothers stuff. So I'll never be fully out of it.
I like that stuff too. I can't help
It's
it.
the best.
It's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I love it. Men from Saturn and hot chicks from Venus. It's awesome.
Yeah, and psychics and all of it. I live for it. So if there's anything I can do with helping to assist you guys in the background or archiving or any of my collection, if it can help in any way, let me know. I got to bounce to my show, so I
Hey,
just wanted to come in and wish you the
thank you.
best, and
Thank you, thank you.
anything I can help with in the future, let me know.
Thanks. We'll be talking soon. Thank
Yes,
you.
will.
Have a good show.
Cheers, everyone. Cheers,
Bye, Matt.
Jack.
Cheers.
Bye,
Good
Leah.
night.
Bye,
Bye.
Steve.
Yeah.
Bye,
And so I want
Matt.
to welcome Peter. Hopefully the everything is working a little bit smoother, but Peter, you keep freezing. And so can you hear us okay?
You might want to turn off your camera, Peter. Sometimes that's a bandwidth issue. You don't have the bandwidth for video. But if you turn off your camera,
Erica,
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah, we're still having issues. I know Peter's calling from Colombia. So
Oh, wow.
Wow.
so
When you guys were
No?
saying that you love the 50s
are
era,
you
I was
picking me up?
you know what? It's coming in very sparsely. So maybe like Steve was saying, turn off your camera and then just do audio.
Yeah, there's a button right at the bottom of
I
your
don't know.
screen. You'll see a button that says stop cam.
Myself, I can't
Yeah, you're
turn off the camera. Okay.
Yeah, stop cam. There you go. Because
Okay,
there's
camera off.
usually
Can you hear
there
me?
you go.
Yeah, sounds
Yes.
better.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? This
Yes,
is
we
Peter.
can. Yep.
Hello.
Yep.
He can't hear us.
Anyway, congratulations, Erica, Jack. UFO
Thank you.
Classified has been just outstanding. It's been the for years now. I just wish everybody great success with your future endeavors, progress of work, continue in the field, and this is something really, really important that we're lacking.
Thank you, Peter. And you've been such a wonderful friend
still
to
here?
the show. Yes, thank you. And you've been
Barely.
but thank you, Peter. You've been so wonderful to help promote the show every week, as has Mario.
Yeah, of course I'm sad, but I'm not sure if my audio is coming through or not.
it's pretty sparse, and I know
Can
that
anyone hear me?
a little bit, kind of.
Yeah. So
But I will say, Peter, like I know that, and we are having a little issue, obviously, hearing you and things. We can hear things intermittently, but I appreciate your support every Friday. And, I mean, I look at all of the wonderful people in chat and the people here on screen that have helped to make UFO Classified such a great show and an enduring show that hopefully will help change people's perspectives. And when younger people are coming into the subject, they can look back at the things that I've been through, the missteps that I've taken, and go, okay, remind me not to marry a guy that's claiming to see a shape-shifting beast standing on a mesa. Obviously, that's clearly number one. I mean, there's so many ways that I have just done things that it's like, oh my gosh, okay, lesson learned in front of the entire world, and I've done it, and I'm open about it, and I think that that is really helpful to other people to see, and I laugh about it because you have to. That's just it's the way things should roll, and so I am really proud of everything that has happened over the years, and this show will always be out there for somebody, anybody. I don't know. And so Steve is here. Steve Long.
Hey,
Hello.
Hey,
Oh, hey, Steve.
hey, what a group tonight you got going on here.
I know, it's so nice to see you.
No, it's great to be here. I just wanted to pop in and say, thank you for all that you've done, all the shows that you put up every Friday night, year after year, and for leaving them up. You have years worth of interviews up that really are a showcase of your research arc and the journey that you've been going through. And I think it's something that a lot of us can relate to, and a lot of people will be able to relate to in the future. I think that I think as humans, we probably have a lot of resistance to admitting that we're wrong, or maybe we were misled or invested in something for a length of time. And it's always reassuring to see that other people are willing to put that vulnerability out there. And certainly been inspiring. So I just wanted to say thank you. And you can see the people here tonight that you've inspired, and there's a lot of great new voices coming to the community, like Leah and the Invisible Night School, and carrying the torch. And certainly the work goes on. We got Stephen Cambion, the last man standing this year. And
Yeah.
just wanted to say thank you, and all the work that you're doing with Jack Brewer and Barry Greenwood with Expanding Frontiers Research, just amazing. And again, researchers like Barry Greenwood, Jan Aldrich, this has been one of the few places where you could come and listen to researchers like that and get a piece of their mind. It's a shame somebody like Barry Greenwood has been doing this 60 years. He's been researching
Well,
this
Steve,
topic
I
since the
am
60s.
going to hit Erica up for her guest list and contact information. I hate to be selfish, but I would feel like I have to, because she has to have some amazing guests that I just never got to, or never knew their contact or contacted. And also, Erica, you don't know this, but do you know why I almost never do shows on Friday night? It's because
No.
it's because of you. I didn't want to step on you, and sometimes driving to the cabin later or whenever, I would listen to you, and I didn't want to. There's some
Thank you.
shows that I didn't want to be on at the same time as.
Thank you.
So Monday through Thursday has been me, but I would like to announce that starting next Friday. No.
No,
Truth Seekers Friday night.
Well, I'll have an arm
Yes.
wrestle with you after hours. But yeah, no, thank you. That means a lot. I mean, and it's sometimes you can be out here and just it's like this. It's sometimes you're just like, what am I doing? I mean, I've been, you feel so alone a lot of the time, and I mean, I have, especially over the years, like I mentioned when I was opening the show, it's like you're being harassed, or you're being you've got all of these things going on, and it's like nobody's standing up to have your back, and it's very isolating, and I've really had to reach down inside of me and say, why am I doing this again? And I have this conversation with Jack all the time. It's like, why am I doing this? Because how is this enriching me? How is this making me a better human being? And then I have to go back and think of all of the things I've learned about people, about politics, about geology, about space, about exploration, about, the whole thing. It really has, for as difficult as it's been, it has enriched my life in so many ways, and those are the important things. And I feel a sense of responsibility to other people that come into the subject, because I want them to be treated with respect, and I want this subject to move forward. And so when there are people like Lou Elizondo, or the people at Skinwalker Ranch, or people that come into the subject that are not forthright with their credentials, that play games, that create behind the scenes communities, that are, putting out little dog whistles to other people to, tear them down on social media. It's like, I want people to understand that and be protected. And so I really appreciate all of you being here and coming on and sharing what you have, Steve, both Steves, Steve and Stephen, and Peter. And I'm sorry we couldn't hear you, Peter, because you've been a very dear friend to me over the years and a supporter of the show. But I'm very hopeful, and as sad as I am, actually, you know what? I have to say, I'm kind of not sad about saying goodbye to UFO Classified. It's like, you know what? Been there, I've done that, and now we're going to move on. All of us are going to move on. And this is going to be a really freaking cool thing. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are going to have some major heartburn. Because, sorry, you might have thought for 2 seconds I was going away. I'm just going into my little cocoon, and I'm going to come out.
Get America.
I have had no doubt. I mean, there was never a doubt that you were going to produce some fantastic work. I never had a doubt about it.
Thanks. And we'll continue to do that. And I would like to just say, on Friday nights, until something new happens, I would love to have like a little, like a Zoom call, or just have some time where we can hang out together, keep in touch with everybody. So,
Well, unfortunately for you, Erica, I got your cell phone number, so you're not going to not hear from me. I'm going to be checking in every chance I get.
Did I mention that my number got disconnected?
No, I'll find a new one. I'm a good researcher. You know that. I got CIA contacts. I'll have your new number tonight, Erica.
Dang, don't. That's awesome. I love that. But Steve, I mean, so what do you think about like the musician thing? Do you want to do like a little gig?
I once decided that as much as I loved music and performing, I much prefer being able to eat every day. So
okay, but like Steve,
let that go.
But Steve Long, like you're a musician.
What do y'all play?
Me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, well, both. I mean, both of you are musicians, but Steve Long, what do you like? Tell us about your musicianship.
Yeah, no, I mean, I play guitar. I don't know how much of a musician I am, but I have the passion. But it never ceases to amaze me how many people that are in this topic also seem to play a musical instrument, just like, more than you would happen to run into, say, in your everyday life or at your job. I just feel like it's kind of more prevalent. But yeah, sure, I would absolutely be willing to do a virtual jam band anytime.
Yeah, baby. Jack, what are you gonna play?
That sounds fun. Absolutely. These days I mostly bang around on guitar.
Dueling guitars. That could be
like
scary.
It.
I think probably a lot of us are musicians because we were poor and it's how we entertained ourselves. And that's how we ended up following things around in the sky too.
Well, I have to say that I was a big Battlestar Galactica fan. Not that I mean, this was back before I was born. So back when I was reincarnated, I was actually alive during that era. Not giving away my age or anything, but so I could entertain myself.
I barely remember Battlestar Galactica. I think I saw some reruns. But you know what? I just watched again the whole V thing from 1984, and it was glorious. I loved it.
What show?
V,
Oh, yeah,
remember
yeah.
V, the
Yeah.
final battle, and it's amazing how much of UFO mythology came out of that TV show. You know, the reptilians and all of that, the evil aliens that are eating us and stuff. I think it came from that TV show. It was a great show.
Well, and the X-Files too. You know, I mean, you
Yeah,
look at all of these moments in time, and I know with the files that I have
you're
here.
right about X-Files. There are people running around right now claiming to be super soldiers that were infected with AI black goo, and that's directly from an episode of X-Files.
Okay, and so can I just ask each of you, like, just for like a couple minutes, let's talk about super soldiers. Leah,
And real quick, I want
This
to
is
bow
one of
out
the
and let everybody continue. But I just wanted to say once again, thanks a lot, Erica, and I look forward to continuing to follow you and seeing what comes in the future, and everyone that's at the panel as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night.
thank you, Steve. Have a wonderful
Steve.
weekend. Thank you.
super soldiers. I honestly don't know anything about this, so I can't declare an opinion or thought.
Oh, you're in for a fun deep rabbit hole then, Leah.
Yeah, I'll give you the 411 on this. Dear Lord in heaven, it's quite the trip. So, all right, Steve, we know that we can go to your show, Truth Seekers, and learn more about super soldiers.
I love super soldiers because one of the things that's so funny is that these guys claim that they're super soldiers and they have superpowers. They basically are claiming to be like Captain America, and they have different origin stories about how they got their superpowers, and they all look terrible for being super soldiers. They're all fat, bald, and like out of shape, but somehow they're saving Earth, fighting secret space battles on Mars. And it's just a funny thing. It's just that's one of my guilty pleasures. There's James Rink has a channel, which is hugely successful, by the way, called Super Soldier Talk. And you can go there and listen to these people tell their fairy tales.
I went down that little rabbit hole for like a day, and it was just like,
it feels like it's the dude version of being a medium or having psi powers. Because like being a medium is totally gendered, right? Like it's always women.
They're dorks LARPing. They have nothing going on in their life.
I mean, let's be real. The four of us are also dorks LARPing, but in a very different way.
Yes, we are.
I have my own.
And I admit that I wear underoos behind the scenes. It's okay. That's good. Whatever. No, actually I don't, but that's okay. But I mean, it's just watching the super soldier stuff is just freaking insane. But I think there is an element to all of that is very frightening. There's a very nefarious undercurrent that I think
it's mimetic too, right? Like it speaks to like social mimesis, like this idea that they're watching, like men are watching other men do this, and so they pick it up as like
there's some women. There's some women doing it too.
But there's some from what you're describing, it does feel sort of sinister, because it implies like a spirit of violence or destruction. Otherwise, they would be super scientists and not super soldiers, right? Like there's a degree of intimidation and violent authority that's implied by adopting that particular title.
Absolutely. And it is.
When you say super soldier, my word association kind of goes to Project Camelot. Does anybody remember?
Yeah, that's they started a lot of it.
Yeah, and then you go back and it kind of even has some roots in the MK Ultra lore of these guys are going to get activated when the time comes.
Exactly. Yeah. They tie in MK Ultra a lot, and they all like were recruited as children, but of course their parents and nobody else knows how they all of this happened. It's a lot of people telling stories, and that's another thing that frustrates me. As a YouTube content creator, if you really want to get pissed off at the direction of your life, go look at James Rink's Super Soldiers numbers. You're like,
and again, I mean, are they
I
buying
missed my calling. I should have
numbers?
just sat there and asked everybody about their superpowers and their secret space battles.
But there is
saving
something
Earth.
really nefarious about that, and I will say that has been troubling for quite some time. And I think when you look at the way that, I mean, oh my goodness, I'm channeling a Nazi and I'm channeling this and that, and I mean, there's some very I mean, I would hope
Oh yeah, that Nazi girl, Marina Sarin, among other things, she's an alien hybrid. She's a reincarnated Nazi SS general and a Vril girl. She's also a super soldier, according to her. She
But
fought
also
space
not
travel.
an anti-Semite. That's important to note.
Well,
She
you
does
know
not
what's interesting?
believe she's an anti-Semite.
I got a
as,
lot
as
of
the resident Jew,
got-
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
but
I quite believe
Mia,
that.
I
but
got
right there with
so
you.
much flack. I got so much flack. People were sending me messages. She's young. She's inexperienced. You should be kinder to her. Now
What?
she's on Douglas Dietrich every week now, and they put up Nazi stuff on the screen while she's talking. They put up like pictures of Nazis and Nazi stuff, and
I
it's just
reached out to
overtly
the
Nazi.
to the organizer of Portals of Ascension, where she's slated to speak, and the response from because look, I too was very young and stupid at 20 or 22. I was a Republican at that point in my life. So like we all have youthful indiscretions.
Well, you may go back considering current events, but
I
what
reached
did they
out to the
say?
Portal of Ascension organizer, and his first response was, "I put thousands of people on stage. How could you expect me to know the backgrounds of everyone I platform at the conferences?" And my response to that was, "That's literally your job as a conference organizer. Please do better. This is embarrassing to you and to the conference." And his response to that was that he is praying for the anger in my heart to be released, and that he thinks Marina Sarin, he's very familiar with her and does not think that she has any sort of problematic elements to her character. This is, Erica, you and I talked about good vibes only being the like lubricant for bad actors, and this is a perfect example of this conspirituality, hippy dippy, like, and I say this as a hippy dippy person,
Love
like,
and light,
like,
and
but like love and light,
forgiveness.
but like also like Nazis get the wall. Like, let's be real. Like at a certain point, you can't accept this stuff into the community, and the willingness to the refusal to confront these bad actors in the community is to the detriment of all of us.
Well, I mean, it absolutely is. And I think, and I've talked about, and I know we might go a little bit over shocking. It's my last show. I can do what I want. But I think that for me to go to, I went to East City Ranch and I was speaking at a conference there, and to see some special people there, and Jordan.
Special people,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I just am not. I mean, just some. That was an incredible experience. And I will say that everybody there was very lovely, and I met some people that I really liked. But we were sitting there at the conference, and I was in the back with my dear friend Craig Lang, who's passed away, and we were watching Jordan Slather get up there, who was Mr. YouTube, like new ager, who came on the scene and then got kind of befriended by Corey Good, and that whole crowd. And he was up there, and I mentioned this so often because I want people to understand how subtle some of this stuff is. But he was talking about, health and wellness, and how, we need to move forward, and all of these good things, and all these great slides are black and white. And then there's a color slide of a crowd, well, black and white crowd, Nazi flag, red. And then you go two slides down, and he's got a picture of Adolf Hitler, where he looks just beautiful, and this wonderful quote from Hitler. And I sat there. Three of us were there, and we just sat there, and we were so physically ill that we had to leave.
Well,
Right.
he is
How do you
extremely
even
right wing, and he got his
confront
following
this?
from being a 17th letter of the alphabet idiot. Repeating those. I don't want to use the Buanon, not the other. You don't even want to use the letter. And he got this huge following out of that, and then he got thrown off of YouTube, and now he's on BitChute. He's big on BitChute.
I mean, we see, like, one of the things to me that's extremely alarming, look, we see the alt-right, far-right Nazi sympathy is encroaching on all number of subcultures and counterculture movements right now. But what comes to mind is that the interest in ufology is not a genuine interest in this space, rather that an interest of ufology is a convenient Trojan horse into
Right.
which they can pass things like undermining consensus reality, further fueling this epistemological crisis, undermining public and common confidence in institutions of record like the government. I've talked about this ad nauseum. There's all sorts of very good reasons to not trust the government, or to be highly skeptical of claims made by institutional powers. But the appropriation of ufology and spirituality and wellness by these far-right talking points is not in service of those subjects. It's in service of trying to further balkanize and fracture our culture and society, basically completely rendering any kind of institution of record totally impotent and powerless, so that, you know, the power vacuum can just be occupied by the ultra wealthy, like the Peter Thiels of the world.
Right.
Absolutely. And people like Bill Cooper back in latter 20th century ufology, MUFON,
Right.
that Erica talks about, were able to, by accident and then intention, a little of both, mix the left wing and the right wing extremists in their distrust of authority.
Yes.
And then that was what the Taos communities, the preppers, the people that
Branch Davidians, Ruby Ridge. Yeah, the 90s anti
with the FBI was they didn't trust people, right?
Yes. Yeah, the 1990s conspiracy, Freemen on the Land, anti-government movements, in many senses probably have more in common with the ultra-left at this point than they do with the right, in many respects.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
And the whole thing is just fascinating. But I think the one great thing, though, is all of you understand that there's a broader picture here that needs to be looked at, and the UFO community has been hijacked since day one by some of these nefarious characters and groups of people, and used for intelligence purposes. And now we see, you know, for me, looking at the way Bigelow and people like that have mined data and use that. You look at Cambridge Analytica, you look at some of these things that have taken place politically to steer a narrative and create discontent, like you mentioned, Leah. I mean, to cause that distrust with our government, and to create this anti-Semitic world that we're living in, where that just is a fine thing to behave that way. It's insane. And we have to, at some point in time, take responsibility in the UFO community, because back in the 70s, you had the fact that the NICAP email list was sold to a Nazi in Canada. And who's saying anything about that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I mean, as with any kind of antisocial belief, whether racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, etc., I do not think it's a reasonable expectation to believe we can change hearts and minds, but instead what you can do is you can make the social and communal costs so high to possess those beliefs that people are deterred from at least vocalizing them and publicly supporting them. It needs to be
been much less deterred in recent years. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've recently had conversations with community figures, not UFO Joe, to be clear, not Joe Murgia, but others, about listening to them defend David Icke. And the response when I asked about why do they defend David Icke was, well, I listened to hours of his talks and it didn't change how I felt about Jews, so I don't think he was anti-Semitic. And I remember being aghast that was the thought process that justified his view of consuming David Icke. It's this sort of and we see the same thing with David Jacobs, right? Like, where his behaviors are just kind of wholly accepted because people, I will charitably say that because they may not know better, continue to defend these individuals as somehow being harbingers of legitimate knowledge or arcane knowledge that's otherwise inaccessible. But the reality is neither of these, I mean, particularly Icke, like, this guy is spouting off stuff that people have been repeating for, hundreds of years. And hearing him still be uncritically celebrated in this community is deeply troubling, and for many different reasons, not just the anti-Semitism.
You would think from a business perspective, they would be that they're stupid to say those things and do those things. Because, like I thought about Kanye West saying all those things, and I'm like, are you stupid? Do you know Jewish people buy sneakers too and buy music?
I mean, we control all the media and all the money. You'd think you would know better.
Well, Erica brought up earlier that there's certain members of the genre, factions of archivists, whatever you want to call them, that aren't interested in correspondence between researchers. They're not interested in intelligence community documents about researchers. They're not interested in the social aspects that don't have something to do with a literal flying saucer. And I think that we all can agree, and that's one of the things I've really come to appreciate about Leah's approach, is that is part and parcel of context. What were these people's relationships with each other? What were their social ideologies? What were their political leanings? Why were they being investigated by the FBI? That's kind of relevant, guys. I mean, like how can people not find that relevant, that like the CIA launched NICAP? How can that not be relevant to people?
And these are things that just kind of blow my mind, when I look back at things, and you can clearly see, and thank goodness I've got what I do here, and that's safe. But when you can see these exchanges from Donald, Kehoe, and his some of the wording, some of the things that he uses, and the rhetoric and the racism. I mean, there's some things here in these correspondence that are quite alarming. And it is interesting that when you've got particular bodies of work about specific researchers, that's a lot of that's not getting out to the public, because there is a faction that wants to make sure that narrative is not put forward, that this is like this ideal golden boy of ufology. And so we're going to keep that going, and we're not going to be transparent. And that's really detrimental to not only the subject, but, to kind of the moral fabric of democracy. I hate to say that, but I mean, it's ridiculous. And I think that needs to be called out. So
yeah. The issues we see right now in the community are just a microcosm of issues that we're seeing broadly right now, culturally and politically and socially. And Erica, Jack, Stephen, I think all of us, I mean, we all bring different things to the table, but I think all of us are focused on this idea of integrity in this space. And also demonstrating by example what it means to be a good steward of this community. I mean, we do it all in very different fashions, but good stewardship involves and entails, again, conferring a substantial degree of respect and integrity into these inquiries and onto this subject. And as a result, also holding high expectations of accountability and behavior for participants and for resources. The more things are held behind walled gardens, the more things are held in black boxes, inaccessible to members of the community. At the end of the day, this just creates excessive friction and obfuscation, prevents anyone from accessing the truly insightful and useful information, and prevents us together as a community from moving forward in any sense.
I love that.
That's how I feel about all the grifters. And somebody once asked me why I go after them so hard, and I say, look, no, I almost feel like the real serious part of the research here can't even begin until we clear the field of all of the grifters. Let's get rid of them and then start over, with integrity and actual evidence and science and good investigative work, not this, fairy tale huckstering nonsense, Well,
I think, Leah, like you said, each of us brings to the topic something that's important. Each of us has a unique perspective, and I know that Jack has done such incredible work with FOIA requests and calling on getting statements from community leaders to paint a very stark picture of what's taking place in the Uinta Basin and other areas with NICAP and the intelligence community and things like that. And so that is so needed. And Stephen, you're calling out grifters, and Leah, you're looking at this from this broad and wonderful ethical perspective and moving the dialogue forward in such just a really positive way. And this gives me hope, because I will tell you, sometimes I'm just like, I look back at these books and I just sit here and go, why did you put this in my life? And I, like, honestly, I would love to like just have a little book burning, but I
I
won't.
wonder what it's like to be normal and have normal hobbies.
I mean, like, seriously, it's like, I go by, I'm like walking by the meat aisle and I hear two moms talk about soccer. And then I'm just like, but you
It's
don't
like a
know what's
different
really
reality.
going on. Yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh, but this is me, this is where I am, this is what my life has been like, and I don't think any of us are ever going to get that part of us. That's a part of us. And so how do we move that forward in a way that is thoughtful, I mean, that is helpful to each of us and positive to each of us, and doesn't destroy each of us like the UFO community can do to so many people that are, get caught up with grifters or people that are trying to manipulate things. So it's important that we've got this group of people here right now, and I'm happy to know all of you. So
Thank you. Back at you, Erica.
Yes,
thanks.
thank you, Erica.
Yeah.
And thanks for all that you've done so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do in the future.
Well, you know what? I thank you very much, and thanks for keeping track of me and listening to the show on Friday nights. And I will say that while I'm going to take a little teeny bit of a reprieve, it's not going to be, I mean, I'm still working behind the scenes. Jack and I will still be talking every day and getting FOIA requests and grammar requests, and it's going to be, I think at the end of the day, like I said, this is going to give people that are not involved in promoting truth a lot of heartburn. And so, good, watch out, folks, because I might be taking a break, but at the end of the day, I'll still be here and holding people accountable for misinformation, disinformation, and not doing the right thing. And I look forward to working with all of you. And Leah, I'm excited to be working. Like, I'll be on the show. Is it next week?
Yep, we're having you on, I think, on the 7th.
Okay.
The evening of December 7th, you'll join me, Lewis, Nick, and Campbell.
Cool. I'm very excited about that. So where can people...
And Jack, we'd love to have you too if you're ever interested.
Yeah, me too, Jack. Me too, Jack.
We'll do
You're one
it.
of the local favorites.
We'll do it. Thank
Jack,
you.
pretty cool guy. Both you and Steve are. I mean, I love you guys. And so thank you very much for joining me tonight. And I want to say, Peter, thank you. I'm sorry we couldn't hear you clearly, but we heard enough to know that you're wonderful and you've appreciated my show. So good night, you guys. I'm just going to do a little outro. Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you so much, Erica.
I'm gonna bounce out of here. I'll
Okay.
be in touch, Erica.
Okay.
And best of luck to you and
Thank
Jack
you.
both.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And
Bye, you
good
guys.
night, Leah.
See ya.
Thank you. So anyway, I just want to say, and I will come to Belfast. I just want to get out and travel, and so I want to just again, I don't want to get emotional, but I could just for a brief moment. I have loved almost every moment, almost, of doing UFO Classified and doing my UFO shows over. Gosh, it's almost been 10 years. Literally every Friday, almost every Friday, with maybe like 10 shows that I've missed. But it has been so fun to me to bring on people, to interview them, to hear their stories, to support them, to genuinely want in my heart to move things forward in a positive direction. And as I've mentioned, I've been very out here for all of you to see my epic fails and my great successes. I'm very proud of everything that I've done, and I am very happy to know all the people that I know and to have this wonderful support system. So Ruida and Scott, Steve, Peter, all of you who have been, and Mario. Mario, I love you so much. Thank you for doing so much for me over the years. This is okay. Anyway, yep, I wasn't going to do this, but I am. So Okay. All of you have seen me through a lot of things in my life. Not only my wanting to learn more about UFOs, the things I've dealt with, the domestic abuse, which has been really hard. And literally, had I not had a show like every week during that time period, it would have been very devastating for me. So to have, that out there as a matter of public record has been very important. And sorry, I was going to try not to do this, but anyway, this has been a meaningful run to me. I'm very proud. I'm so grateful that I know all of you. And this might be a goodbye to UFO Classified, which will always be available for everyone to hear. But this is an important hello to Expanding Frontiers research. And I will say that I look forward to working with Jack Brewer. I look forward to working with many of you and making change and looking at new avenues where we can do things that are productive and interview people that have stories to tell about their community, about space exploration, about all of these wonderful things. I am so excited for 2023. This is going to be the best year of my life. And I promise you, keep your Friday nights open because I will be back. And like I said, I will have a Zoom call on Friday nights until that, the new thing breaks. So go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org, subscribe to that on YouTube. And I love you guys. I love you guys. So anyway, thank you.